All right, here we are. What do you know?
Yay.
All right, now I don't know which Zoom thing to be on. There we go. Okay, people. Welcome to CreateAWorld. Create for those of you who may not. Uh-oh, I can hear it in the background. What do I do, Janice?
Just close the tab.
Which tab?
So find the tab where that video is playing and just
How,
close it.
and just close it?
Just close it. Yep.
All right. Okay, people. This is CreateAWorld, and you just witnessed some of it in motion, which I'll talk about in a minute. For those of you who are new to CreateAWorld, welcome, and obviously welcome to everyone who's watching that has been with us before. CreateAWorld is a platform, a video connection with everyone that connects with us, where we're exploring what it is to create worlds. And we've done that in a wide range of ways. And we're going to talk about some of what we're experiencing as nuts and bolts today. We've had lots of times when we've talked about vision and um, more grand sweeping experiences and efforts, and today may be a lot more nuts and bolts. So the first nuts and bolts is I don't know myself as someone who's real tech savvy. And I just succeeded in getting this live streamed. So that's an accomplishment that I'm going to celebrate. But what it means in terms of creating worlds is I now get to upgrade my identity, my experience of self. I don't get to wallow around in, I can't do it anymore, except when I can't. I mean, when I need help, I ask for help. Anybody can and should, but I definitely get to upgrade my identity now. And that may seem small, but I keep saying, I remember in math class when we were learning about angles and triangles, and then in science, the correlate of all that, and every single angle starts as a point, and it starts really, really tiny, and then could go into infinity unless you stop it for the purposes of your discussion. So, every single one of these kinds of accomplishments or shifts in sense of self is an aspect of CreateAWorld. And Janet, I'm going to let each person introduce themselves, but each of the rest of us has had shifts and changes in our worlds on purpose, and that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. And both of you, please introduce yourselves and then add whatever you want to that introduction.
Liz, why don't you go next?
So I'm Liz Geyer. Um, wow, shifts and changes. I think I piggyback on that. Uh, we've had an amazing experience in the month of September, and so a group of us in the field of Tantra Mutt went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, and we're uh, still in the steeping of of
Mm-hmm.
of that, and discovering more every day. And so, I mean, I'll just jump in and say what I discovered this morning because I'm in the throes of I'm on the eve, what I call on the eve of starting a new creation exercises project through our LOC Institute. And so when that happens, I don't know for any of the rest of you who are watching and my comrades here, when that happens and you begin to be with a body of work that you're going to be steeped in, the work works you, so to speak. So that's what's kind of happening. And so I'm finding myself this morning discovering that I'm beginning to operate more in what's called heart frequency or heart coherency. And in all honesty, I feel like I've just been birthed newly. So beyond that discovery in writing this creation exercise that I wrote, I am brand new. So I have no idea, what that looks like. I just can feel a coherency and so I'm tapping into my heart. And if I feel a balance there, then I know, okay, that balanced breadcrumb is where we need to go next. So it's really that simple, but yet it's also kind of complex for me. So yeah, that's where I'm sitting this morning, in some sort of heart coherency and knowing I need to be here. And that's my next breadcrumb. And then where's my next breadcrumb after that? We'll see after this time is up. So so it's brand new. It's brand new, brand spanking new. So
And
over to
I've
you,
got some
Janice.
questions I'm going to
Oh,
ask
oh, you
later.
do. Okay. Oh,
Later.
okay.
Janice.
Sounds good.
So I'm Janice Cornetti with the Fertile Voice. I have, over the last couple of years, been making some major shifts in my life, leaving a 35 plus year career with the public school system, writing for the first time ever a play, which was a one-woman show about my experience during the pandemic, and touring it now. I think it's to 8 different festivals as of this count, which I can't even believe that. And now I'm building the Fertile Voice with the heart intention of helping people reclaim their own voices, because I see a lot of people, particularly women, who are still having a tendency to contract in a place where they might perhaps be expanding. And I feel with the feminine, primordial feminine, especially for me, on the rise, that there is a need to make sure that everybody, but particularly that every woman is in her voice in a way that she can share what she feels called to share with the world, whether it's in her home, in her community, in her state, across the globe. But all of that definitely has required major shifts in being. Yeah, so I think the thought this morning was that we would do some exploration of how do you do that? How do you shift how you're being? So that's the conversation we're inviting you into today.
Yep. All of that is so important, and in my opinion seems to be accelerating. Now, I don't know if that's accelerating in my world, which includes you two and others, or if it's actually accelerating what I call out there in the world, in the greater social structures and whatnot. But I think it's both. So where do I want to start? Well, I'm trying to start in about 5 places at once. So where do either one of you two want to start?
So I am feeling compelled to presence the importance of listening to that voice inside you. Whatever that voice inside you is that simply will not leave you alone. For me, it started as a voice that acknowledged that. So I was going 700 miles an hour before the pandemic hit. I was traveling all over the state of Florida for work. The pandemic brought all of that to a screeching halt. And there I was, you know, like regularly sitting on the couch with my dog. And it turned out I really liked sitting on the couch with my dog. And I'm in Florida, and Florida opened right back up. I will not go into all the details of that because it still enrages me. But Florida opened right back up, and the system that I was working for opened right back up. There was this voice inside me that was saying, not you, Janice. Maybe everybody else wants to go back to the way things were, but you do not. You don't, you know, it's not in your best interest to. But I was an overachiever and a good girl. So the idea that I would just, you know, I mean, I ended up filing for a work from home accommodation, which pissed a lot of people off. But I did it. And I'm glad that I did it. But that was because of this voice that would not let me go. You know, and I can now see that it was definitely my higher self saying, it's time for a different path. It's time. And yes, it's going to be awkward and at times uncomfortable. And you are going to have to renegotiate a lot of relationships, but it's time. And had I not listened to that voice, I don't think any of the things that came afterward would have come. Deb, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Just as a matter of basic physics, they wouldn't have. I mean, you'd have gone this direction and that everything else was calling you, but it still was, you know, everything else was headed this way. It still takes such a lot of not just courage, and so I'm not stepping over that, but what I want to point to is the detailed attention, and Liz pointed to it too. Liz has her way that she's calling being heart-centered, where she registers the details of this choice, this choice, this choice, this choice. You have your ways of registering this choice, even if you feel scared, even if it looks really unglamorous or very glamorous, whatever, it doesn't matter. And registering it and having that sense of, yes, this is true for me right now. And it's not the kind of true for me right now where, you know, it's going to be changing in the next 5 seconds. true for me right now, like this phase of my life. And it just seems so nuts and bolts to me in a certain way. And I steer off of kind of in between the two of you for a lot of my choices and awarenesses, and probably spend too much time saying, is this really what's calling to me? But since that retreat where of Joe Dispenza's work, it doesn't take me very long at all anymore. And I've just calmly said or done some what would have once seemed like outrageous things to people, of disrupting patterns, um, and just saying, like, it's kind of just considerate to inform somebody this pattern is not continuing any longer. So they get informed, and that's it. And that's it. And then, fortunately for me, I haven't had much pushback or negative response. Surprise. And, you know, like ripple in the force kind of, but not pushback. And it's just really interesting to just do stop, change, start. And so far, a lot of it's been what seems like small things, but not really, because from your one woman show, which you really graciously let me watch a video of, and I cannot wait until it's the level of video that you're satisfied selling as a product, because that is kick butt. That is a really powerful piece of work. So for the woman who is used to saying, yes, I'll do that, when she really means no, or really wants to say no, whether that's at a corporate job or, taking on too many things at the PTA or bake sales, or, it doesn't matter what the life is, her life is, if it's real for her. But that one act of saying, no, I'm not going to take on another bake sale, or no, I'm not going to do that piece of this corporate project when my plate's full and I'm already working more than 50 hours a week and whatever the configuration is. Those are not small, and the ramifications in a person's being, as well as the circumstances, that's quite something. That's really quite something. So what tools? In my mind, Liz pointed to tools that we've talked about before on CreateAWorld. And she named her way of registering authenticity and reality, of being heart-centered, and we engaged a lot with a phenomenon of brain-heart coherence at the Dispenza retreat. But you named the creation exercises, Liz, which we've talked about. And I was struck by, in the beginning, it took meaning way back in, I think we started using them in 2004. That was the very, very beginning. And it took quite a while to extricate ourselves from using them to solve a problem. Like, I can't think of a good example right now. Craving a car that works well, or, craving enough rest or something. It took a long time to break that mental structure. And then in my just kind of general memory, we spent a long time using them to create worlds. And now there seems to be something different about the use of them. It still is in the creating worlds realm, but have you noticed that, Liz, or can you talk about that?
It's hard to bring language to it. I mean, I've been realizing that when you, I mean, there's two be I mean, there's many tools that we in the
Yeah.
field have. We've each explored our own pieces of work and um and been driven by these pieces of work and and what I'm discovering is that when you combine these meditations that we've learned with writing the with the creation templates, it packs quite the punch, is what I'm noticing and observing.
Can you say
And
more
so
about what that means for you? What is
packs a punch, packs an energetic, free, so what I've come to realize in my now 12 years of really being in a conscious practice of writing the creation exercises. So at least one, I will say at least one a week, if not more per week. It used to be daily. Um, is that I now know that when we write these exercises and we're in this body of work, yes, it takes a lot of effort to sit yourself down to be in this practice. It's just like yoga. Okay. It's like going to the gym. It's brain gym, which brain gym is a literal program,
oh
but it
wow.
is gym for the brain. And it's gym for the being, really. It's a practice that now I I know we each create our own language of creation. Okay. So we create our own way of being and speaking when we're writing these exercises um, on a more consistent basis. And so when combined with one particular meditation that I am very gravitated towards, and so I know now to listen to the voice or voices that say, go with where go with where your obsession is right now, really. I mean, you know, I call it an obsession, but where you're really, really drawn to go um as tools because there's something about that. Follow that breadcrumb and stay with it until you now are ready to move on to something else. So I'm really drawn to this one particular, it's a 30-minute meditation on heart coherency, heart and brain coherency. And it's that. So I do that and then write an exercise and it opens me up more. It opens the heart up. Um, and creates just kind of a fertile space. I love the fertile voice. I love the word fertile because it describes so many things. Um, it creates this fertile space for all kinds of new language to come in and for experiences of, I'll say, manifestation. I can give a quick example. Um, I have two family members that have birthdays right on the cusp of each other. And trying to get my family together right now to celebrate that has been really challenging. We're all in different places, things are happening. So, um, in my heart meditation, I saw a future that there was an ease of gathering. This was 2 days ago. We're getting together at 7 tonight. Just seemingly impossible. Um, and part of that is seeing this as just a real natural occurrence. And that's how it happened. It's like somebody said, "Oh, I can get together for frozen yogurt. Oh, I can do that." Whoa. That that was not happening a week ago, okay?
Yeah.
And then being in the writing of the creation exercise and all this language coming up about heart frequency. And I'm like, whoa, what's this? So it's all to me, that's called packing a punch, right? I sent out my seeing myself in future with family um as though it was happening, and look what happened. It happened. It's happened.
Yeah.
So to me, that's called packing a punch because when you when you're in this work and you're writing your creation exercises as a tool, using that as a tool, and you're developing your own language, after time, you come to rely on that. You come to rely on you as source. And, we've been working really hard on that this year, ourselves as source based beings. And so it's just very exciting. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it really did. And I'm hearing that the manifestation has shifted into, well, I mean, not to overuse the phrase, but creating worlds.
Hmm.
And in that moment, it was the world of celebrating each other. And how do you logistically do two birthdays that are back to back with a family that's getting more spread out and involved in a lot of things, et cetera, et cetera. So that's creating a world. And it's not that manifestation of uh something like a, I don't know, I am thinking of all the people in Asheville and Florida and everything where their
Hmm.
homes are smashed. They need stoves and refrigerators and new homes, and they need a lot of manifestation along that line, and they need a lot of problem solved at the moment. So it's not that any of that's bad. Uh, it's just like the listening of when that's sufficient or complete and it becomes creating a world. I don't know if I'm
Yeah. No,
communicating.
no. Yeah,
And
definitely. And I also want to say really that going into these last few days of being in this, you know, activity, there was no outcome. It wasn't like, okay, I expect my family to, there's no expectation, there's no outcome, like this will happen. It's really, it's in the to me, it's in the fun of the exploration
And
that
it wasn't like
things
you thought,
happen. Yeah.
okay, it's a great idea for us to get together for frozen yogurt. Let's make that happen. It wasn't like that
Yeah.
either.
Not at all. Not at all. So that's the fun of this work. And as per our beautiful humans that need all this support, oh my goodness. Um, the other thing that we don't realize is as we sit on this side of our planet doing the work that we're doing, whatever side of the planet we're on, that the work that we're doing does send out frequencies.
Mhm.
And I heard a beautiful young man, um, whose community I'm considering joining because he's just so pure. He's beautiful. I heard him on YouTube last night. He's in North Carolina, and his community where he lives was pretty trashed. And he just came on very, very authentically and talked about, the type of work that he's doing, which is, he works with trees, and he works with nature, and he's now working with human beings in very similar work to what we're all doing here, working on behalf of humanity. And who's to say that, what we're saying now, what he's saying last night, aren't going to impact um, the the outcomes of people getting what they need. I mean, he said in his statement, he said, with all of this happening, I've gotten to know my neighbors.
Mm.
We actually are speaking to each other now. And so, we all in the field of Tantra Mat and Janice and your work have been, this is what we've been working, about is humanity, connecting with humanity and creating a collective of cohesive living and coherent living together. That's what we're doing. And I knew that it would take a big event, um, also for this to happen, but yet we're still the ones swimming underneath and creating these ripples, right? So who's to say that all of this work is not going to impact? I can imagine it will impact these beautiful humans who are trying to um, put their lives back into an order, but yet also I wish desperately that that order will be new,
Yeah.
and that land and those homes and that their ways of being will be fulfilling going forward. So anyway, over to someone else.
Yeah, and so that brings me back to something that you were, that you started us in this vein of the conversation, Deb, about, not that there aren't people that need stoves and refrigerators and things like that, but because yes, but to me, the power of the creation exercises and the other things that we're talking about is also the ability to shift in the etheric
Yeah.
what is calling to be shifted. And that's, the Dalai Lama famously said the world will be saved by Western women. And
Mm.
my take on that was always when they wake up to their real power.
Mm.
Because we're all so powerful. And to me, when I say that, I don't mean like brute strength. To me, our power is in our creativity. And when I think about everything that humans have created during the time they've been on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
it's miraculous. I mean, that's the only word that I
Yep.
can use is miraculous. And when we are in our redacted selves, and thank you, Deb, for bringing that word into my vocabulary, because it's so appropriate where it's needed. When we are in our redacted selves of thinking all the I can't because, and well, I never could, we're like Deb saying, well, I'm not a tech person, and now all of a sudden she's like, right? I mean, we all have so many of those things that we have running in our heads, some that we're aware of, some that we're not aware of. And in the work that I do with the Newfield Network, a lot of that is about, sort of identifying
Yeah.
patterns that have been controlling us, and how can we shift the patterns, and how can we shift the patterns through language and emotion and even our bodies. But when we use tools like the creation exercises to create these new worlds, to me, that's what we're really saying. Now stepped in to a a more powerful level of our being, where our ability to create is expanded, where the possibilities that we can see are, I mean, and you've got all these Gen Zer kids right now, or kids, but creating, nail polish that you can dip into a drink to see if somebody's, drugged your drink, or sutures that change color in the presence of an infection, or,
Wow.
things that are out in the ocean, gobbling up all the trash. I mean, it's just, we are so creative when we can really let
Yeah.
ourselves. And so then those new worlds, Liz, that you're talking about, we can create
Yeah.
when we can step into that place of being, and to me, in that place, we are then co-creating with creation.
Right.
When we can step into those places, then what's before us is unlimited in a really exciting way. But we first have to, get ourselves free enough, at least, from these limiting beliefs and patterns and habits, that we can see these new choices in front of us.
Yep. Yep. And the young man who's now gotten to know his neighbors, as I was listening to you, Liz, I'm thinking, what a world it'll be that when they've rebuilt their houses and got the, sheets and towels and stoves and whatever else they need, and the food supply reestablished and whatever else goes into that. Because I know for sure Asheville will never be the same. Asheville, North Carolina. It'll literally never be the same. I'm not sure about the areas you live in where Helene hit the most, Janice. But the point is when they rebuild, chances are pretty good they're not going to just say, well, that was really great working with you and getting to know you and all that, but now I'm back to living by myself in my house the way us Westerners tend to do. And, or many of us, I'm very guilty of that. What a world it'll be when it's a rebuilt neighborhood and they maintain their connection and let it evolve as it will, the way it's meant to be. What a world that'll be. And I know I've mentioned before, I think somewhere on the CreateAWorld, I remember learning about an experiment in Washington, D.C. in 93, where a whole bunch of meditators came and their main purpose was to impact the levels of violent crime in the Washington, D.C. area. It was set up as a science experiment. And the impact of meditation on violent crime was so statistically significant, it could not be ignored. And there was some allusion to that kind of phenomenon at the Dispenza retreat. And has set up what did he call it? Walk for the World, Liz? And that's October 12th, which I can put on the Facebook. And it's to do walking meditations on behalf of the world. Now, this is not airy fairy. And what a world it'll be when that becomes understood in our daily lives, that level of engagement, that our power of meditation and sending that kind of energy out in the world impacts ourselves and the world in astonishing life enhancing ways. What if we could end the conflict in the Middle East right now? What if? What if just by engaging that way? So I think there may be, I'm hoping, it sounds silly for me to get all excited about, wow, I connected, excuse me, I connected us to YouTube Live, and that upgrades my identity. But it's really not, because it's the same as, it's just an order of magnitude different than a walking meditation that can change the world. What if we come to know ourselves that way? And then all the unique expressions of creating worlds is just luscious, luscious, exciting, adventures and expressions.
Because, I think it's important to recognize that we and I mean none of this through the lens of blame, but all of the worlds that aren't life-giving and life-enhancing, we created those. So it really shouldn't be a stretch to say, well, then in a different energy, we can create a different world. Because every system that oppresses somebody requires the participation of vast numbers of people in order to keep that system standing. And so if we were then to shift the energy to stop feeding those systems and feeding new systems, then that's like you were saying, Deb, that's just physics. You're just transferring the energy from one path to another path.
Yeah. And it's entirely doable. It's my favorite one, not my favorite thing. It's a favorite activity when I just want some downtime. I find YouTube shorts of really cool things that have happened in the world. And I know there's an algorithm that the more I look for that stuff, the more they put it on my YouTube. I understand that. But to me, I'm just going to call it magic that there's more and more and more of that out in the world. Even if it's true that there's an algorithm, it's still sending me more and more and more examples of exactly what you said. Completely, exactly. And I think we've hit a tipping point where there's a chunk of humanity that's beginning to say, oh, that's who I am. And I'll show up that way. It'll show up in my life that way, or I'll do it this way. But that's who I am as a human being. Whoa, I think we're hitting that tipping point. I think we are.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And, we've learned in the field of Tantra Mat, one, to give everything a place, which we're doing here today again. Just in every piece of conversation we've had, we're giving everything a place. And I had a point. And two, just I think in each of us considering our own part in all of this, and where we each sit individually, as far as, well, how is what I'm being right now impacting the world? I think just to consider that. I mean, I hear around me more in my, more intimate circle, because well, I shouldn't say that. In my intimate circle, yes, I'm hearing a lot of that that people are really excited about what they're sitting in now. And then I'll say being out in, in society, so to speak. Really, for me, it's just in the grocery store. And I don't know. I think before I left for the retreat, I was seeing more, feeling into a more depressive state of being as a whole, even in my small community. And I'm not seeing that anymore. There's a kind of a new, some sort of energetic community wide that I'm seeing. I'm seeing more smiling and um, more of a craving to connect with strangers. And I hadn't seen that before. And that could just be because I'm looking through a different lens now. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think it's collectively we're starting to really respond to um, you know, an understanding that we know that we're creating, we like you both said, we're creating our reality now. So how do we
Mhm.
want to show up on a daily basis? So
Yeah, yeah. And for me, that includes, yes, people, I am going to say this. That includes, I don't care which way people vote here in America. Well, I do care, but that's not the point right now. That includes, I don't know if it's real or not, but I'm starting to sense a shift into people believing they matter, their vote matters. Now, I'm not, my circles aren't real wide right now, and I'm not politically involved and out in a lot of social activities right now. But so I'm not quite sure where I'm picking that up from. But even something as seemingly small as, wow, my vote really matters. And it's more about using my vote to help shape America, for example, or the young man who's meeting his neighbors and actively causing that to happen. Those are rubber meets the road times where the energetic meets the physical plane, the choices, the activity, the really that's an as above, so below kind of phenomenon. And I think that's so exciting.
Yeah, it makes me think about two sort of a quote and a poem that have guided me
Mm,
in my life. And the first one is Margaret Mead saying, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so to me, that's that point expanding into an angle, Deb, right? I mean, because if I change my trajectory just a little bit here, then I wind up in a very different place,
very different.
right? And then the other thing is the poem about the starfish and the father and the son walking along the beach, and there's been a massive storm, and so there's starfish everywhere, and the son's picking up and returning starfish to the water, and the father says, what are you doing? Look at all these starfish, or you won't make a difference. And the boy looks at the starfish in his hand and says, it makes a difference for this one.
Mm,
And I think that's the opportunity that's in front of us right now is making whatever difference we can make, again, in, where we find ourselves in our community on a larger stage. Because of course, anytime we do that, we're also making a difference in ourselves, right? I mean, we're changing our own, with every starfish he put back in the water, he was changing his own energetic too.
yeah.
Um, and stepping into his power of creating a world.
That's right.
Creating a
And
world, darkness will return to the sea.
yep. Oh, that's brilliant. That is really brilliant. Wow.
And there's billions of us on the planet. So if
Yeah.
we do a little bit, that's billions of bits that are being done.
And then the cool part is discovering, because I'm circling back around now to a lot of what's in your one woman show. A really important and really cool part is discerning what's my little bit. And for a long time, I would have just picked from choices that I would hear were the right kind of choices because I didn't know really how to think it or discern for myself, and or not beyond a certain point. And then that began to change and evolve, and then I could see, oh, this is related to that. It may not be what people say. Um, well, now I can't think of an example for that, for, ending hunger, but it's related. And this is what I'm called to. And this is how I'll handle it. My contribution to ending hunger or something like that, whatever it is, because that's such a big one that it seems almost impossible, but I know it's not. And then, to just keep thinking for myself and what would that mean and what would I want it to look like? And then that's backing up and backing up to how am I going to how am I going to clean up my yard this fall for planting in the spring? And I never would have thought that. I never would have traced that back. And yeah, here in California, I can plant a lot for this. The fall and winter really is still a planting season here. I'm probably not going to do much of that this year. I'm going to clean up and prepare. But I never would have thought before that cleaning up my yard or the way I cleaned up my yard had anything to do with ending hunger. It had anything to do with, um, you know, what I can give to food banks come spring and summer.
It makes
But
me think of Tantra's phrase, it's nothing till I call it.
yeah,
And you're calling it.
and I'm calling it.
Mm.
And I can actually see the progression, the relatedness. But at one point, I wouldn't have. I would not have seen the connection at all. And, learning new skills, because I have got so many prickly pear tunas. I cannot believe how many I have out there. And I've tried in the past of saying, whoever wants some, come get them. And I do not know what the problem is, but they come get just a couple. And I'm saying that does not make a dent. So, all right, I have to learn how to make things out of prickly pear tunas and learn a new skill. And then I don't know what that means, or, what does that make available? Or, it's just, but it is, you're right. It ain't anything till I call it. So it could be this, it could be that, it could be some of all of it. But I just love the rubber meets the road of the etheric or the beingness and the grounded action, where the two meet. I love it. I love that. I find it so fascinating.
Well, I love that. And that you're, taking your garden as an example is a meta point. It's one of your points because you have several. We all have more than one
Right.
way that that we dot ourselves on the map of the universe. And because it's kind of the way have I've spoken about this before, right? I always knew myself as a dot on the universal map, and in feeling its immensity, wondering, well, how is that going to make a difference?
Yeah.
And now I know that my one little dot, well, it's moved into several little dots, but just that one is important, and now I know that. And so for me, it's the importance of each of us knowing that that one little dot matters. Like you said, our vote matters. That's a meta point. I mean, we're
Mhm.
made of several. We just have to explore what those each are for ourselves. And that's I'll swing back around to the beauty of this work of being with the creation exercises. Yes, it's work. I keep saying, I've been kind of saying that a
Yeah.
lot lately. It is work. It is work for us to sit down and take time, our precious time. But boy, it's, you know, if I knew that writing an exercise would help me get to this point many, many, many years ago, I would have started a lot sooner. Um, and And so I think that's my takeaway message to people is please know that, even if you feel like you're sitting in your home not doing anything or whatever, you know, whatever small thought you think in compassion on behalf of anyone else is a dot on the map.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The beingness is just as powerful, if not more so, than what you do.
hmm Yeah. So just, being in compassion for others who are struggling um, matters,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's part of the universal wave of humanity and humanity's compassion that's going to help us continue to move into better places of existence. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Any last words from you, Janice, before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I think, never underestimate the power of offering your own vision and hope to the world, because that may be the exact thing that somebody else needs to spark them on their journey. Um, I mean, certainly I've been moved by other people's stories, which is why I choose now to be in the work of storytelling. Um, and so, because we are infinitely connected. I mean, the molecules literally move back and forth between our bodies. I exhale carbon dioxide that goes into a plant or another person, or we're literally connected. So never underestimate the power of putting out, of putting your vision of beauty and wonder and creativity out into the world.
Yep. I agree completely. Anything for you, Liz? Last words?
No, I think that was very well
Yep.
stated.
Yep. And on that note, then,
Yes.
bye, everybody. Let's
Have a
see if I
great
can disconnect the
week.
live stream here.
Take
Okay. Yep.
care.
There we go. I can do it.